pledge allegiance to the flag of the
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, public comment. You have public comment, or you're just there?
I'm just here. Glad hunting season's over, but then we got the news that there's gonna be a shoulder season, so that doesn't work.
There always was,
So,
was it there?
yeah, I didn't know they were gonna do it again until just recently. but
Did it start today?
I'm not sure when it starts. I'm sure it's
Probably.
I heard it started on the 27th. That would be today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the day after hunting season. yeah.
No breaks.
So it's not good because we've been handling a lot of trespassing complaints, but that's my bad news
Yeah.
for the day. How's
It
that?
should lessen some with, maybe just the cows, you know, can't, bulls and deer is over with.
Yeah.
Be just cow hunters. Okay. Any community reports, updates of any kind?
We had our second recreation board meeting. It was actually a pre-planning meeting. We'll have a meeting this week. We're going to be bringing in the Community Development Council to help to moderate and plan some of our public meetings. That is the board that was set up about a year ago to coordinate kind of the change in ownership for the softball fields, the golf course, and rod and gun club. And then we also, I don't know if you got my email, Corey, but we have Katie Feeback, who's going to be the attorney on the amicus brief to support the Johnny Crow project. He did the Stonewall project amicus brief, and we've got a couple more partners on board, so.
Do you know the timeline on that?
Yes, we thought it was February, it's December that
Oh,
that's
wow.
due. So I was really glad that he called even before the grant has come through and said he's on it, so. He said he was gonna get that turned in by last Monday. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I know him. He's done a lot of work in this arena.
Oh, good. I would imagine you guys have worked together in the past.
Mhm.
All right. So that's all I have. Oh, and Montana Minute, just give kudos to Phil's Forest at the corner lot up here. It's Philip Knob's project through Rotary, and we'll be getting the lights and have a big ceremony at the beginning of the Christmas stroll on Saturday. That's all I have.
I don't think I attended any meetings, or there's, business as usual, I guess. Didn't have too many calls either, pretty good, I guess, pretty good week. We don't have any COS reviews, we're a little ahead, the minutes. There's the 13th, the 20th, and then the October 10th that just got here.
Move to approve the 13th and the 20th as submitted.
I'll second it. Been moved to second to accept the minutes as been sent on these 3 dates. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed.
I didn't receive the 10th, the email, so I would like to table that until next meeting so that Mike has a chance to review and I have a chance to review.
Okay. I'm gonna hold these here for.
Thanks, Ann.
In fact, we could go on that right now. We got a letter from Gallatin County. And I thought we paid this, was Jefferson, Gallatin, and Broadwater putting in $5,000 for that, where they're studying on that bridge, those 2 bridges in the grant. And it asked, and we got a bill here for it. And I just see in these minutes of October 10th, the commissioners received a letter and invoice from Gallatin County regarding the Williams Meridian Bridge. Commissioner Delger made a motion to pay for Broadwater County's portion of the cost from Philip. Commissioner Obert seconded the motion, and the motion passed. Commissioner Delger will contact road supervisor, Dana Ross. Anyway, so maybe these crossed in the mail or something, I don't know.
You wanna follow up with the accounting department and
I can
verify?
check with, Melissa. Yeah,
Michelle,
Michelle, I keep it, too many M's. I'll just tell her it's in the October 10 minutes, and she wants to look that up herself, then she can. Letter from Sheriff Win Meehan, and he's congratulating the good job that Jessica Crush did during the fair and everything. First wants to read it word for word, he can. And basically, that's what it is. And this is the one we all knew was coming. Those are this on Vigilante Electric. It's the power rate's going to go up. They said a couple of years ago that it'd be going up. I don't know if they said what year, but anyway, it is. Approved claims in the amount of $71,962.58.
move to approve, or, pay the approved claims in the amount of $71,962.58.
I'll second it. Moved to second to pay claims in the amount of $71,962.58. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Here's a Christmas card from Great Western. Counting, this is CenturyLink, this is the commissioner's card. This is from fall weed manager training. I think it's the one right here on mosquito on, October 4th and mosquito. I have those down. I'll probably come in and read those over then, and I haven't read them yet.
Those are agendas for the upcoming trainings and conferences they have. He's hoping to engage not only the commission, but his boards as well, to help people understand what he does.
Northwest Energy, Silos Campground, Silos Group. One's $119, I think there's $15.16. Northwest Energy, Senior Citizen, $225. And Verizon, the commissioners, is $97.93. CS reviews. We're just a couple minutes ahead, but I think, Corey, if you want to go ahead and get started on your first part was a resolution of issues of private business use of county property.
Okay, is there anything else you need to cover before we start on that?
Not for me.
Well, and I was gonna do a bunch of updates Can I roll on all of them, or do you want me to do them all one at a time?
Go ahead. I think that's what you just listed here, is on down the line is updates.
So the,
Other than that, deed of Razor property.
right, and,
Is that fellow with it?
yes, Schweiner's here, so we can.
I don't know, maybe if you wanna do that one, no, I don't know, we better stick closer to our time.
We can
Go
still do
ahead.
it. So the, and that one, as I understand, you're referring specifically to the medical clinic building, Dr.
Right.
Campbell's building. So,
Yeah,
so Doc Campbell and I have exchanged messages. We have not actually connected to come to a negotiation of how to deal with that building. Commissioner Delaher and I went over and visited with them the other day, but he was gone, so, so where we last left off was what the county was proposing, which was basically at the end of that period of time, working out whatever the arrangement would be for renting, leasing, whatever that facility. But at the end of that, the county wanted the building removed. Is that still the position? Because you'd rather have the space and you can do whatever you want with it post that building, right?
I just think
No.
it's gonna be a saddled additional
Right.
burden on our taxpayers to do anything else.
Right. And that, it's modular, so I mean, it could be removed, so.
Oh, yeah.
So the issue that we don't know is what level of, so that would take care of the maintenance question, if it wasn't that the county was acquiring ownership. If we acquire ownership, we acquire all the maintenance problems with the building. So I think we were trying to avoid that as well, does that sound right? So
Yes.
I just haven't, I just got behind on this because of some other things, and so we haven't been able to connect, and we've talked on the phone, and he has an attorney in Helena who wants to be there, and so we just haven't been able to put it together, so. But the email you sent this morning about rent, was that specific, was that for this issue, as an example?
Yes,
Okay.
and here's the, I don't know if you want that, but that's the first page of the rental agreement, sorry about that. Yeah, I thought it was 6, it's 9.
$9 a square foot
Yeah,
for Department of Revenue? Okay. And then I think the other predicate question is, do we own the building? There's a bill of sale in there from the hospital, but I don't know that we ever gave them anything. So I think it would be, more accurately, it'd be a quitclaim deed if they just granted it to the county. So, do you guys have any insight into that?
We've never decided it. I know the deed was recorded.
we did accept it at the meeting January, February-ish. What happened is there's some, and I'm not an expert on this, but there's some legal questions as to if the hospital could continue to own it when Dr. Campbell was no longer one of the hospital docs.
Mhm.
And I don't remember what that term is, but that's when they came to us and that's when we accepted the building.
So I was aware of that. I've talked to the attorneys for the hospital and Doc Campbell and his attorney. They all agreed that there was some point in the past when there was some issue, dispute between them, and it was resolved so that, as part of that resolution, so long as he had privileges and continued to see patients or whatever at the hospital, that they would then let him use that building. Unfortunately, it appears that it was never written down. Like, neither party has it. And so the terms of it are hazy at best. So that's why they said, well, and both parties said, we don't really, nobody even knows what the settlement was at this point in great detail. So they didn't feel like they either were bound to it or were going to attempt to bind the other party to it. Which is good. So now we're into the arena of the hospital just doesn't want the building. That's it. There's like, we don't want the building, we don't need it. We don't wanna pay taxes on it, we don't wanna pay utilities. Doc Campbell's taken over the utilities. So now we do apparently have a tax bill that's, I don't know if it's been paid or not, from 2017 taxes. So
Don't either.
that's that's the other issue that came up in as I was working on this, so. And, all right, so the bottom line is that we've been ships passing in the night between the two of us, so. But I understand the commissioner's position on it, and then I had met with Commissioner Delger on it, and I think we just looked around the building a little bit, we went in and talked to the staff, and I think he agrees that we don't wanna take on the maintenance obligation of the building, so. So that's where we are. So then the other question would be, it's all a matter of timing of what Doc Campbell wants to do, so. Time-wise, how long he expects, he's told everyone he's headed toward retirement, it's kind of a question of when. So. But, I will take this, and I'll pursue that with him more rapidly than we have been. I have a few other things to pass on, if we wanna just go right to those, or if there's.
Go ahead.
So on the search and rescue building project, I sent you an update a few weeks ago on workers' comp. They will cover workers' comp for construction volunteers. Again, though, it's, I understand the arrangement, and I'm probably not the expert on this, but for any volunteers where they are covering workers' comp, there is still a contribution that needs to be paid for their premium. So like on the fair, I think it must come out of the fair budget. So that would be a question back to the final decision on moving forward on this, is what's that estimate likely to be, and that obviously is gonna be way cheaper than labor, but you're still gonna have some amount of money to be paid out of someone's budget for workers' comp premiums for those volunteers.
Seems to me like when Search and Rescue has got some set aside that they can use for that.
Well, I know they had the monies that they got from the Recreation Trust for materials, and I don't know if they had money set aside for the premium. The second issue was the general contractor, and I was contacted by Billy Amsk, who is a general contractor, who said he would be willing to be the general on this, so I asked him to contact Commissioner Delger, and then he basically said, what do you need me to do? And I said, well, then you just need to get with Search and Rescue, and you guys need to put together the full package of what that would look like and present it to the commissioners. And that was 2-3 weeks ago when I talked to him, Mr. Amsk, so I don't know if that's moved farther down the field, do you know? So, I'd say it's in his court with Search and Rescue to be able to put that package together. And then the third thing we had talked about was architect's approval of the plans, and they were gonna go back to the engineer who did the design, and he thought that John Hedstrom thought that that firm had a contract, or an architect they had retained, so he was gonna find out the cost on that. So, other than those three things, the project is, as I understand it, gonna be back. In fact, what had happened is the commission approved it subject to those things being done. I would recommend that we go ahead and have everybody back in front of you with the full package, just to get us all on the same page. But with the weather's been good, you know how that is, it's gonna change, but if they got these things done, they could
Yeah.
potentially get working on it. So, the two things I was tracking down were workers' comp and the general contractor. The answer on both those is that they have somebody, so I'd say, who is the driving force? Is it Search and Rescue Board more so than,
There's Search and Rescue,
okay?
I think so.
Yeah. I don't know that we've had too much to really do with it, other than what they've
Okay.
brought to us, so.
And I think I appreciate your suggestion. I think it'll be important, since we did have that contingency to our motion, to have it in full view of the public. so that we
Okay.
can check off those.
I'll talk to John where things are going, and I'll also talk with Bill.
Yeah. The Blackfoot Telecom contract. I believe you guys were all in on those initial meetings that we had with, by conference call with his attorney, we went through all those items. They've sent me a revised contract that answers some but not all of the issues. Actually, some pretty good things that they've done. One of the big concerns if you remember, that I had about this contract was it didn't define how the provider could breach the contract, or like what level of service would constitute a breach where we could get out of the contract. Well, so the contract documents consist of several things that all constitute the agreement. They put in a suggested, basically breach term in one of the documents, which looks pretty good, but then it hasn't carried through to all of them. So that's number one, is I think they just need to make some edits. And then number two, there are a few things in here about our costs of, our costs we would have to pay to them if we try to get out of the contract early, that I think are pretty significant. And then there are a few things in here that I think are important that they just haven't accepted at all. So I've been communicating with Scott Lester, who was the gentleman who was here. He's passed me off to their attorney, and we're trying to do a call this week, but we both were traveling. And so right now it's two things on it. One is there's still some work that needs to be done on this contract. Number two is they've also asked for more time because of this. They've asked for more time on the engineering. If you recall, they were trying to have by January 1 would have a determination, and now they're asking to move it to February. So the final issue is the cost of, if we were to get out of some of these other contracts. I have not contacted these other vendors yet to pursue that, because I wanted to first make sure this was going in the right direction. And if we're gonna go down this road, then I'm gonna try to potentially negotiate with them to reduce the cost, but there is some cost associated with getting out of these other contracts. I don't know if CenturyLink has contacted any of you. At one point, the CenturyLink rep here had said that he was gonna give us a proposal for this level of speed, et cetera. I haven't seen anything, so I don't know if that's something that we should still entertain. In other words, we're making progress here, but not as much as I'd like to, so.
Right.
I think we certainly need to entertain if there's a better deal out there for our citizens. I think we need to be open to whatever that is, whatever other options. I haven't vetted this, but I have heard it from two different sources that CenturyLink is currently in the process of selling out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it may be that there's a whole different company to negotiate with, and we might be able to get some kind of package that's agreeable.
How big of a company are they? Are they like regional, multi-state?
The purchasing company or CenturyLink?
CenturyLink itself.
It's nationwide, it's
So
huge.
it would be one of those big mergers.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and I haven't heard who it is. There was an IT guy from Kalispell that told me.
Okay. I reviewed a RFP for Brian Hone for the solid waste department that had some, it apparently had used some language from an old one and from another county, so we did some things to kind of change some items and make it consistent, so I'm gonna check with him and see if he needs me to do anything else on that. Otherwise, I think he's gonna be bringing that to you to look at fairly soon. So, and that's for, I wanna say he was gonna be pretty soon, like near the beginning of the year, was gonna try to get it out. To ask for requests for proposals for solid waste services, so. Anyway.
Good to know.
We ran into a wrinkle on our budget. There's and I'll pursue this in more detail, but there has been apparently for years a law library account at the district court's office, which we and they have used for legal research, to pay for legal research. But it was underutilized. Because at some point in the past, before I was here, they transitioned away from paying for, book subscriptions for the law library and went all electronic. So that account was underutilized. They weren't paying out all the revenue that was there. But one of the things that was getting paid out of there was my legal research fees for my subscriptions. So that, you guys cut that in the budget, and so then I was paying it out of my publicity subscription and dues line item, which is $330. But that amount also pays for my state bar dues and county attorney dues and another issue. And so now there's not enough money in there to pay my legal research fees for the year, and we haven't even paid the dues stuff. So we didn't notice this until last week when suddenly there was no money left and we have a LexisNexis bill. So I'm gonna give you more details on that. I can tell clearly it was just an oversight that when we looked at the fact that there was an underutilized account. So I'll get you the full details, but I'm gonna have to ask for probably a restoration of some of that money that would have been from that law library account to pay for that, because right now my total bill for LexisNexis for the year is about $2,700, and we've already expended it. I don't have enough to pay the December bill, so
How much is LexisNexis?
it's about $2,700 a year. So if you look at, do you have ours? Do you have the budget thing there?
I do, but I did not bring the law library budget, just the general fund. Actually, I'm just gonna go run and get it.
Well, here, I have
Yeah.
an old version I'll give you. And actually, I have a hard time understanding this one because it looks like, if you go to the third page, it looks like it's nearly down to zero, but the front page, anyway, I didn't look at it that, well, Sherry grabbed them for me and I didn't look at it in great detail. But I don't think that we need to restore the law library fund because I was the only one using it. It would make sense to just to leave it in my budget, unless Judge Flynn, unless he's using it also for he has a legal research system through the courts of limited jurisdiction. But I know that Val's office isn't using it, so. And that's definitely cheaper than continuing subscriptions of all those books.
You just check with him on
Yeah.
that.
The only one that uses the books anymore are like the actual libraries.
We can talk with Debbie, I don't remember the details of that. I think we talked mostly with Val on that one, assuming it was for district court.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can double check with Debbie.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the decision to cut it because it was, I think my research was the only thing that was being used out of it, so it was underutilized. and there was more money being appropriated yearly than was being used. Which the good news is, at the end of the year, that was refunding back to the general fund, but what would have to happen then is just we would need that corresponding amount kicked over to my legal research if I'm paying for that, because without legal research, I'm dead in the water. And then, as you know, we hired Kelsey Anderson for 8 hours for the position. So the wage band that we had actually didn't work for legal secretary, it worked for clerk. So Michelle just suggested we name the position legal clerk, and that fit the same wage band as she had from the judge's office. So what I'd like to do, because we had been up to 20 hours a week, and that was 8 hours a week. What I'd like to do is still attempt to find another part-time person for up to 12 hours a week at that wage, and that would give us some flexibility of when we, with up to 12 hours a week and her 8 hours a week, obviously we would just schedule them so they're not at the same time. So I'd have to probably hire externally, because she was the only one that applied internally. So unless you guys know of someone else that might be interested.
We might have some that might be interested. I'd like to talk to you
Okay.
a bit more about that. If we have folks in-house, that would be the better way to go. Folks that are under hours. So yeah, I'd like to talk to you more about that, if
Okay.
that's all right.
I just didn't want it to kick that person up above the health insurance benefits threshold. That was something that we were cognizant of. Kelsey was already above that, so the county didn't incur additional costs with that. But, yeah, I'm open to any good suggestions.
Okay.
So
What is the title, a law clerk, is that,
it would basically be a legal clerk, yeah,
or legal clerk,
Yeah.
okay.
which would, and then would be supervised by the paralegal. So that's how we have it set up now. And she's doing great. She's doing great work for us.
Good.
So. And then I have the other short-term issue. Nicole has given me all the documents on the Longhorn driveway. I just haven't got it done yet. You've possibly seen the schedule for the Galzagori lawsuit, that we have some depositions coming up next week. And Alan McCormick's gonna come down for those. I'll sit in on part of them, but I also have court those days as well, so I'll be going back and forth. And it might make sense, I'll check with him and see his schedule. It might make sense that we just do a quick closed door meeting sometime next week to give you guys an update on his thinking on that case, since he'll be here. And then, very close, I've done a ton of work on the Forest Service roads issue that I have kind of mentioned cryptically. I'm very close to a meeting with you guys. I'll probably I'm finalizing kind of a memo that initially I would give to you, because the nature of it, because the nature of it, we might do an initial closed door meeting on it because of something that could potentially be it could be a closed door meeting due to potential just legal issues with private entities, but we're very close on that. Done a ton of work on that. It's just something we're gonna have to spend a lot of time on. We're gonna have to work through some details, and it's a big project.
And something you never planned on.
Yeah, it was definitely came out of left field, but, there you go. So I'll probably just maybe one-on-one over the next couple weeks before Christmas, just come sit down with you. That might be what I do.
Okay.
And then figure out when, we're gonna have some public meetings at some point, but, there's a little bit of gap in our research that we need to find some time to do, so. Anyway, that's gonna be a good project. And then we have a large litigation issue that we're in right now with the Conservation District over a mining claim that's on a stream up Montana Gulch. And that's, we've been slowed down a little. They've had some staff illness issues at Conservation District. They're tracking on that. So, that slowed us down a little bit, so that'll be something this winter that we're gonna do some hearings, and it could go all the way, it's one of those that could go all the way to the Supreme Court, so.
Wow.
That's where I am right now. Other than, the Roberta Arnold, quiet title action. Do you wanna transition to that, or do you have any questions on the stuff that I've covered?
No, I don't have any questions.
Do you wanna come on up?
Yeah, we're within 5 minutes or so. Was you having anybody else coming?
Nope, it's just me. May I sit at the table?
Yeah.
Give you what I've got here. This might make it easier to talk through it. We're all looking at the same.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Here's one for you.
So I'm gonna turn it over to Sean to let him intro the issue.
Yeah, Commissioners, I really appreciate your time. I represent Roberta Arnold, and Roberta is unfortunately has dementia, and is in a nursing home in Helena, and her power of attorney is trying to sell a piece of her property in Radersburg to help fund for her care. And in trying to sell it, they found a few issues with the certificate of survey. And one of the issues is that when they redid the survey in 1997, it included or includes part of an abandoned Second Street and a main street and an alley. And I think the best way to march through this is to sort of historically say what's happened, and then you can just understand it. And if you look at page 1 of the document, this is the certificate of survey that was filed in 1997. On the left, you'll see parcel A, and on the right, you'll see parcel B. Parcel A is owned by Roberta, and parcel B is owned by Harold and Melba Carpenter. Melba gave Roberta some land, and Roberta gave Melba some land, and they had it surveyed, and this is the survey that came out of that exchange. There's a number of issues with it, some being that part of the property wasn't transferred right before Roberta transferred it. But what we're worried about here are just the alley, the main street, and the Second Street. So if you turn the page, and not this page, but this survey, so the second page. This is amended track B. This is the page that Harold and Melba Carpenter own. And again, if you turn to first page, it's this track B. They amended track B in 2002 to include boundary adjustment with the Radersburg Baptist Church. When that was done, the Broadwater County Commissioners agreed to quitclaim the Carpenters, Main Street, Third Street, and the alley. So the Commissioners have already approved and agreed to and signed a quitclaim deed transferring Main Street, Third Street, and the alley to track B. So all that I'm asking is that the Commissioners agree to transfer the little piece of Second Street, the Main Street, which again you've already agreed to transfer in the past, and the alley, which you've already agreed to transfer. In addition, I have some minute meetings, I don't know when they're from, in the file that I think Melba Carpenter found, where the Commissioners agreed to the abandoned alley. I understand there is also some minutes for Third Street and Main Street that I just didn't have, so. I think the issue is really pretty easy. No one uses these streets, and I need to get a quitclaim deed from the Commissioners from Broadwater County before I can do a quiet title action with another little piece of this property that we have a problem with. So I guess I'm asking for a vote and a resolution allowing the transfer of Main Street, the alley, and Second Street on parcel A to Roberta Allen. Arnold, I'm sorry.
My
Right.
only question, did
Yes.
you bring by chance a map of Radersburg?
You know, I do not
one?
have a map of Radersburg. I just have these certificates of survey.
And do you know if that were done, if it blocks anybody's access, or can they get access via first or fourth? That's
I
another
would
good
think this
question.
would not have been done if it was gonna block anybody's
Yeah,
access.
I understand it's on a hill and that these streets aren't being used as, now.
That's what I'm assuming.
Yeah, and that's all the information that I've been told. And since they were already transferred, right, in the past, really I'm not asking for anything in addition that's not already been approved, other than the
No.
quitclaim deed, other than for the approval of the deed.
No, I get that,
Okay.
and I appreciate that, it's just what I'm envisioning.
Yeah, I
I do
got
not
it.
have a vision of these roads specifically in
Okay.
Radersburg. So what I'm envisioning is this road second, or third, going to the back
Sure.
part of the neighborhood, it was blocked in 2002.
That's correct.
Do they have an access other than second?
And that I don't know, and in fact, I understand that second is also not used. But,
Would it be all right with you if I just went and looked at a map?
yes, certainly, definitely.
Okay, I just,
Why would they just go to Radersburg?
okay, that'll work.
Second and third have been closed.
That's what I understand, that they're both closed.
So is there the Baptist church here, this amended tract deed?
So the
It's
amendment,
on,
yes, I guess there is. Or at least they own the property, I don't know if the church is still there.
Hey, Sean,
no,
was
this is
second
new-
officially
this is new church.
closed
It's the new church?
Well,
Okay.
per minutes that you're aware
I
of?
couldn't find the minutes, but I do know that Third and Main and the alley were closed.
Okay.
But I couldn't find anything on Second.
I have no problem doing this, I
Yeah.
just wanna
No, I
make
get
sure
it.
that we don't cause another problem,
Right.
because we don't do our homework on this one.
Understand.
Okay.
And just, I mean, again, just so you understand that the part of Second Street, if you turn to the first page, it's not all of it. In the survey, it's just this little bump out to the left. You can see there's a little bump out on it's right here on the first page. It just bumps
On
out
this
a
page
little
here, okay.
into Second Street. We're not asking for the whole Second Street, just that little bump out where the survey was included in Second Street. So when I ask for the quitclaim deed, it's only for track A as defined in this certificate of survey. So asking no more than already has been filed. Does that make sense?
It does,
Okay.
absolutely, yeah, I didn't notice that at first, so,
Yeah.
we're still closing Main, but that was already closed in 2002.
Yes.
Second Street is still usable, because really, it's just a sliver
It's just
here.
a sliver, that's correct.
And the alley was already closed in 2002.
That's
Okay,
correct.
yeah,
Can I
that
see that
helps,
minute?
thank
Sure.
you.
And I think I have another set of minutes for the Baptist Church deal. I'll try to find those and I can send them over to you too, just for your
Thanks,
file.
Ann.
I'd like to see those too.
Quite sure where you are here.
Here's Main.
And this would have been,
Block 6.
this would have been lot 6 of the Wilder. Main, 4th,
Okay,
2nd.
here's,
Just imagine how big that town would be. Those lots were all sold and
here's Block
That
6,
house is
and
on
here's
the
Third
Oh, no
Street.
kidding.
So
I don't know
must
if you
be
heard
right
Vic's talk, but it used to
here.
be
It's
one
right
of the
here.
larger towns in the
That's where it
state.
is.
People either lived in Diamond City, Radersburg, or Butte.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
It was
how-
10,000, yeah.
So it's this right here, this section right
Yeah.
here. And I don't know if this is even used, there's nothing above it.
So is
Apparently this is a hill right here.
This is the A we're talking, and this is the B right
That's
here.
correct. Well, it's probably the A, the B, and then the church property, if you were to lay it all out.
Oh, okay. And they
So-
can get to the church property by going around if there's ever an issue with,
Well, apparently they're not
Folks.
even using this Main Street now, so they must have, it must be on this.
Yeah, the church comes off of,
Okay.
what was Third Street when that was closed, that's part of the church,
That's
part of
right.
the other.
because the church was transferred, that little section of Third, also like half of Third Street, you can see. I'll get back, so here is Third Street, this was the church's property. So this part went to the church and this part went to the carpenters.
Yeah.
Okay,
It would be like this if I put it on.
yeah, there's still access, so I'm good with it.
Yeah.
Right. The church property is
Is
evidently
right over
out,
here.
yeah, it's actually outside of the
Yeah.
Wilder edition.
Okay,
So this
To
minute
say that this is
entry,
confusing when you start doing the records is
Right.
It is
Statement.
confusing.
no kidding, there's a lot of details.
Yeah.
There is,
Yeah.
there is.
Unfortunately, this survey in '97 probably shouldn't have been accepted because it included sections that were county's property. They probably shouldn't have filed it, but, so now we're going back and just trying to fix it.
Sure, yeah,
so this hearing is June 15th, 1998, Alberta County Commissioners, closing the Raidersburg Alley between Second and Third Streets in Block 6 of the Wilder Edition. No opposition. Attendees were Jenny Schauber, Lois Kimpton, and Mr. and Mrs. Carpenter. The adjacent landowners spoke in favor of the closure,
Yeah, that's the alley
and
right here.
it was closed then.
That's the alley they're talking
And
about.
there's another minutes that I don't have about the closing of Third Street and Main Street. That when my client wasn't part of that, that would have been Melba Carpenter and the church. So.
and I agree with you about what you said, I would think twice about Main Street, but it's already been
It's
done.
already,
so-
it's already,
I thought
yeah.
Main Street was
Right.
what the highway was using.
Yeah,
Is
Yeah,
it- I think, is that it?
that is right.
Yeah, okay.
That is right.
Some called it Main Street.
And if, in fact, if you look at, if you look at the first handout on the first page, you can see it's the Highway 90.
This part of it.
They moved the highway,
Oh, well, that makes sense.
so they moved the highway, so that's why you can't use Main Street.
Got it.
So again, and we're not asking for the whole Main Street, just this little bump out.
So it shaved off the front of these lots.
That's right.
Correct.
How about
Wow,
Yeah, and you can see it on this first page too, where the highway.
that? So that was probably just part of the
Yes.
engineering
Okay.
project of when they did the highway. They
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
condemned that
Yeah.
and paid for it,
Yeah.
whoever owned those lots.
yeah. Well, that helps, thank you.
Well, no, thank you guys, I really appreciate it. Once we get this done, then we can get the rest of it cleaned up, but I know they're.
I would move that we go ahead and grant the request to close the portion of Second Street shown on page 1, that portion of Main Street and the alley.
In track day.
In tract A, thank you very
Yeah.
much, John.
All right.
I'll second the motion.
No one's here to comment, so.
Any
And?
more, any more discussion? No more discussion, we'll go do a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed.
No, they're,
Do we need a resolution too for a quick claim, do you think?
yeah, I would say a couple things. This, is this the one that you,
That's the draft, and I don't know that the signature part is correct in that, so I didn't know if there needed to be who could sign it, so that's sort of, but the draft is,
okay,
everything else is correct.
okay. So let's go ahead and just change that.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
And right there. So he's presented a draft quitclaim deed, probably just some minor edits. And then, would you guys ordinarily do a resolution on that, or would you do it in the minutes that you approve this?
We haven't done a resolution for quitclaim, so we stick with practice. We just do it as an agenda item, which it is.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would think at this point we can just sign when the document's ready.
Okay,
Have you emailed this to me?
I have,
Well,
yes.
then I could go edit it,
Okay.
and we could do it today.
That's-
You wanna do that?
Absolutely.
That would be great,
Yeah.
Let's do
excellent.
that. And are you notary? You are, right? Okay. All right, why don't we just, do you wanna take a 5-minute break and we can go? Does that work?
Yeah, we have a little bit more business, so we could just do that and then pick this back up.
Thank you for your time, I appreciate it.
Okay, you
Yeah,
bet.
thank
You
you.
wanna change it to Broadwater County,
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do. Broadwater County and
whatever
Townsend.
else you need to do.
The rest is, I think, okay.
You bet.
got that about under control. Okay, in the, approve the journal entries, I had on there for, it was August, September. I've talked with Mako, and they said as long as there's a place, and I told them where they're at now, and the clerk and the recorder's officer, and in fact, on his desk, and he says as long as everybody can go to them, go through them, and whatever it takes, he said they don't have to be brought to a meeting or anything, and it can just be voted on.
We agreed on a process that was brought to us by the county auditor. I'm not sure what the questions were that you posed to whomever at Mako, but I would certainly want to have a full engagement and discussion with them before altering what we already agreed to on the 13th. I did put together the process that we agreed to, and again, this was brought to us by the auditor. So when it comes to finances, that should be the first person that we listen to. Basically, what it does is just lay out what we already talked about. The Broadwater County Board of County Commissioners agree to approve journal entries in a timely manner and according to a common process as discussed and agreed upon on November 13, 2017. Journal entries will be placed in a location agreed upon by Commissioners, Finance Officer, and County Treasurer and Clerk and Recorder. That location is the County Treasurer and Clerk and Recorder's desk. All Commissioners will review the journals in that office and initial as they are reviewed. They will not be brought forward for approval until they are reviewed and initialed by the Commissioners who agree to approve the journals monthly. Questions will be directed to the appropriate personnel at the time of review, Finance or Treasury. Concerns will be brought to the full Commission, Finance and Treasurer, Clerk and Recorder. When those journals are initialed, the subject will be placed on the agenda to read, quote, approve adjusted journal entries for whichever month, dash decision, unquote. The chair will bring those journals to the commission meeting for full public disclosure where a vote will be held to approve or deny those journals. Proof of the voted decision will accompany those journal entries. Are you agreeable to sticking with what we already agreed to?
Well, not really, Eric said they don't have to come to the meeting.
Eric is not an auditor. Eric is an assistant director of Mako. He doesn't know the process. He didn't talk to Bob. I think it's unfair to be holding up a one-on-one conversation you guys had without Mike and I privy to that when we already had an agreement in place. There is a reason for that. It was discussed at length by both accounting and the clerk and recorder treasurer's office. And I think it's disingenuous to have gone above them to circumvent our employees.
I was just asking some questions, is all I asked him. As I said, you know, they're in a place where they can be
Franklin,
read.
if I may offer something. In the interest of full disclosure, if they are brought down to the meeting and anybody wants to see if all three of you have signed them, they're here. What is the problem with carrying them down here? So that they are at the meeting if anybody has any questions about it. If somebody has a question and they're sitting up there, somebody has to run up and get them anyway. You might just well bring them down and get them approved. And you have a process sitting here that your auditors have requested.
Yeah.
I will
You-
move that we approve the process that we already agreed upon and follow the process as described.
Well, or not, you have to have enough. Then we're gonna go ahead and approve the August and September ones, and then carry on with this.
We certainly could, but they need to be brought down. You can't approve something that isn't in front of us.
I was told they didn't have to be brought down.
You were told also that they did have to be brought down by the county auditor, the finance officer, the clerk and recorder, and treasurer of this county. We also talked about that being a way of avoiding fraud, because it's a deterrent. Gives the message that we're keeping an eye on things, which is a top priority for the commissioners.
Right.
No. Look at that.
So what that does is it quitclaim deeds just the property that's in the certificate of survey, that's on page 1 of the handout. So it's only the boundaries of that tract A. And I used the same language that's in the quitclaim deed that you've already signed for the neighbors, just to make it easy.
Okay, I'm relying on you.
Yeah, that's good.
Everything's okay, okay. Do we need a motion to sign this quitclaim deed? Or is
We
that
had a
already
motion
taken
to
care of in
approve
that
this.
first motion then?
Yeah, I think you already did the motion to sign it, we just made the edits, I just changed it. The bottom had Lewis and Clark County, I just
Yeah.
changed it to Broward County.
Yeah,
Oh,
in
okay.
the notary block.
Okay, so in other words, all you need is just sign it.
Yep.
Is there just one commissioner sign on this?
Well, yeah, I just put county commissioner, so one of you could sign. So,
Just have, I'll go ahead and sign this.
okay.
You want me to fill in the dates, or you gonna take care of the dates?
We can do that.
Okay.
I need it,
She'll need to notarize
Going
it.
the wrong way, I guess.
and we need to fill out the notary book as well. We're doing this backwards.
Yeah, that notary book.
Yes, that's very, very important.
It is.
In fact, I'm not gonna sign it till we get it on there.
Okay.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
fine, and you can just
I'll get it
scan
to
it. Yeah, yeah, I remember when I was a notary, when I first got down to law school, it was a lot easier
Oh, yeah, it's,
than it is now.
obviously, people were way too lax with stuff. so-
Yep, that's what happens, right? That we get more rules, but, all right. Oh, I really appreciate your guys' time. Thank you.
It's nice to meet you, Sean. Thank you. Thanks, Corey.
I'm gonna be gone, to the county attorney's convention this week in Billings, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, training and stuff, but obviously I myself, so. And then we're gangbuster, got some big trials coming up in the spring, so we're just working on those.
When do they start? When, is February, is it?
First week of January, we have a trial,
Okay.
second week of February, second or third week of March. I think we have 2 in April, district court trials. It's just